Today we're going to be replacing a fuel injector on a 2004 GMC Yukon, and the problem with our Yukon is that the injector is letting in a little bit too much fuel. So it starts really good in the morning, but then after you drive it for a little bit and it warms up, if you turn off the ignition and then soon after you turn it back on, it's basically flooded. And you can correct that by just pressing the accelerator all the way to the floor as you turn it on, and that actually gets it started. But it should just start normally, but there's so much fuel in cylinder number 3 that it's kind of flooded. So a new injector should do the trick. Before you put a new injector in, think about adding the fuel cleaner into your fuel system cleaner into your gas tank, because it's really inexpensive and easy, and a lot of times it'll cure the problem. It'll clean the injector. But if you don't, you can always buy just one injector to fix the problem, or you could replace them all. They're really expensive though. They go for about $50 to $60. To do the injector repair, we just need the new injector, or you can get a whole group of them, but again, they're really expensive. AC Delco is a good factory type brand. And need a pretty big screwdriver to use as a lever. You might need a new little rubber O-ring we'll talk about here in the video. You need an 8mm and a 10mm socket and a little bit of motor oil, and that's it. So first thing we're going to do is start up the engine, and we're going to pull the relay for the fuel pump so that we can get all the fuel out of the system. Start it up. Come over to the fuse box, pop this off, locate the fuel pump relay, which is F/PMP. If you notice, there's a big one and then come down one, and that's the one. So when you pull that, the engine will start to choke. Just pull that out. Just gotta wait a couple of seconds. RPMs drop off. There we go. And that's just taking fuel out of the rails so that when you remove it, you won't have as much fuel leaking out. There'll still be a little bit of fuel leaking out. So if we look at the engine on this side, these are the odd cylinders. So it's cylinder 1, 3, and 5 and 7, and on the other side are the even ones. So in our case, the engine diagnostic tool said that cylinder number 3, the injector is sticking. So this is 1, this is 2, and the fuel injector is back here. What I like to do to get to it is actually remove this fuel rail so I have a little bit better access. So we'll go over today how to easily do that. So you may want to stand on something to get you up a little bit higher, because this engine bay is up a bit high. We're going to use an 8mm to just take off this one screw here, and once we get that off, we can take off this upper cowling, which is just mainly for aesthetics, but we got to get it out of the way so we can do the repair. Get this off, you're just going to lift up, and then you're going to pull towards you a little bit so these clips on the back can come off. Get that out of the way, and then to give you a little bit better access, we're going to just disconnect these clips for this wiring harness, and you can use your screwdriver to do that. We want to get off this one and this one. Come up underneath right here to pry it open. If this video is helping you, please consider pressing down in the lower right hand corner of your screen the subscribe button, and that really helps our channel. Push it in here. There we go. Okay, that's loose. We're going to remove this one, which is a 10mm. We're going to remove these 3, which are 10mm. So we'll take out that screw right there. There are 3 of those 10mm. Gonna pull this off, put it off to the side. And we're going to finish taking off this 10mm here. We're just trying to create a little more room to work. But off to the side, I'm going to lift up on this harness, this wiring harness. Just going to kind of get it off to the side here so I have a little bit better visual access on what's going on here. So now I want to remove an 8mm here and one in the back. On this side you can see a little bit better. 8mm here and one on this side. This is a Schroeder valve right here, and if there's any fuel pressure left, if you press in on that, it'll let out the fuel, and a little bit of pressure left, but it might be good to do that too before we do the next step. Removing a T20 right here, Torx 20, from this crossover fuel rail, this one. Okay, don't lose that screw, so that's a Torx 20 Torx bit. So we removed an 8mm back here, kind of see, you can see the same one on this side, and we're going to do the front one here, and that's to get this rail off, the fuel rail. And you don't have to disconnect this crossover to do this. Another option is you can leave that screw where it was. Take this little clip off too. And you can disconnect this one, this one, this one, this one, and all the connectors, and you can lift off this rail and this crossover as one piece. That's a good way to do it. A little bit harder to get everything to disconnect, but definitely possible. To do that though, you have to also disconnect where this fuel intake comes from this hose, which is a little tricky. The other thing you want to think about too at this point is taking the electrical connectors off of the injectors on this side. There's 4 of them. To do that, you're going to, so you can see this tab where my finger is, you're going to lift up on that tab. That's like kind of like a preliminary release. It's 2 steps. So you lift up on that, and then there's a little piece where my index finger is. I'm pushing in on that. I'm going to wiggle and lift, and that comes off. So if you look at this electrical connector, check it out. You want to bring that up first, then you're going to press in on this little tab right there, and then you can pull it off. Still a little bit hard to come off. You got to wiggle them off. Let me try this one. Finish taking this 8mm off. Alright, there's the 8mm. Put that off to the side. And try and get some more of these electrical connectors off before I'll do it. Here's the one for the last cylinder. I lift up on the catch. That one did come out pretty easy. I'll try this one again. Lift it up on the catch, push in on the tab, and that one did come off. So we got 3 of them off. This is for cylinder number 1. Lift up on the tab, squeeze in. That one came off. So we have all 4 off. Now we just want to use our big screwdriver to give us a little upward leverage to get this off. And we're going to disconnect this EGR cap back here. I'm going to lift up on it. It's just a rubber cap. Okay, lift. I take that pipe up a little bit, give me more room to get this crossover off. I'm going to lift up on the crossover. You'll notice there's an O-ring in there. Here we go. A little bit of fuel came out. So I'll get this underneath. Get a little upward pressure. That one came out. I'll do it over here too. That one came out. So the rail's out. Now I have to carefully guide it out of all this stuff. So I got to make sure this one crossover is out of the way. If this video is helping you, please consider pressing down in the lower right hand corner of your screen the subscribe button, and that really helps our channel. Thanks. I'm going to lift up on it now, try to guide this out. Not spilling all that fuel. There we go. Just got to get underneath these wires and wire harness. All right, there we go. I'm going to pour that out into a container. So we can see still a fair amount of fuel in there. Now that we have the rail out, it's actually pretty easy to switch out the injectors or the one injector that's giving you trouble. I'm going to put a little bit of motor oil on the O-ring for each of the injectors that I'll be putting in. Just a little bit coating it around the perimeter. Go to the next one. Makes it a little bit easier for them to seat. It's good to do with any time you do O-rings. And these are the same injectors that were in there before. We just cleaned them up a little bit because they still were working, except for just the one number 3 just had a clog in it. Okay, those are all done. So I'll use got the fuel rail usually sits like this, right? I'm going to take these clips off the back, put a standard head screwdriver in there, and you could do this while the rail is still on too. Get that out. Pull that off. I'm going to pull off this injector. Put that off to the side. Pop in the new one. Kind of twist and push right as it goes in. Twist and push as it goes in. Get that nice and seated. Get the clip on there. Okay, got it. That one's in. Maxed in now, right? It's all the way in, nice and flat. Looks good. I'll take out this older one. Get behind that, use a little leverage to clip out. There we go. And now we're going to grab this one, pull it, wiggle, twist till it lets go. There we go. Sometimes you can put, if it's really stubborn, you can put like needle nose pliers in here to give you a little bit of leverage. Okay, put that down. Put in the new one. Oh, upside down. And twist. Push it all the way in, seat it as low as it can go. Have the clip back in. If you look at the clip, it's kind of that concave area. That one's going to point toward the top of the rail. A little bit offline. Let me try it again. I gotta line it up so these two metal prongs go on this side of this central plastic piece right here. All right, that's great. you think about the one that's in the furthest to the back, number 7, if you want to twist that a little bit towards you, makes it easier to get that plug on. Doing the last one, the 4th one now. I got the clip off, pull it out, new one goes in. Already got the lubrication on there. So you have the silver side goes up, the black side goes down, and pivot, twist. Get the clip in there. So again, you can do this with this rail still in the vehicle by just lifting up on the rail a little bit to get to one particular cylinder, but I prefer to get the rail out because it's just easier to do it. Okay, so we have the injectors in now. We're doing good. We're going to put the rail back in and just put it all back together. Put a little bit of oil right inside here just to make it easier for that O-ring to sit in there. So we're going to put it back in. It's going to go like that. We're going to just fish it underneath all this stuff. Alright, so we're getting the rail back into position. Feed it into those little holes there. Take your time. This thing's out of the way to be able to do it. Get this back over there. That preliminary wise. And take a gander at what's happening in the back here. Get this out of the way. This rail is going to go underneath. This plastic will go underneath that metal right there. Alright, get my back injectors aligned. They're aligned now. Get number 3 aligned. 1's aligned. 3's aligned. 5 is aligned. 7's aligned. So they're all ready to go in. Now I just want to put some downward pressure, kind of wiggle, get this rail to sit all the way back down again. Make sure nothing's in the way of it. Put this 8mm back in here in the back. Get it all lined up. Get started by hand to screw it in. Okay, I got an 8mm in the front. Right here, put that one back in. Get started by hand. Okay, I'll go ahead and tighten those up. Just tightening up that second 8mm. So we got them both on nice and snug. So we're going to go ahead and put on the electrical connector to the back cylinder, cylinder number 7. I'm going to push it in and just make sure it sits all the way in there nice and tight. Pushed it all the way in. Do our next one, number 5. Clicked in. Next one, number 3. Clicks in. And I'm going to push the little, I clicked it in, but then I pushed down on that to seat it down in there. Here's number 1. All the way down, then I'll lock it in with that one. Make sure they're all locked in. Got it. Okay, so that's pretty good. Next part, we're going to get this crossover rail to go back in. We have to make this O-ring. I don't know if you guys can see it. Right here, we have to make that sit down a little bit, so I'm going to give it a little push. So we're going to use this little tool to carefully get this O-ring down. I'm going to lift up a little bit on the rail So I want to get this to sit down in there a little bit deeper. So I loosened that number 8 bolt back there so I could lift up a little bit here. I'm going to lift up just a fraction, and then I'm going to push this O-ring deeper down into the channel. Not real deep. I just want to come down where it's below, all the way around. It's below being flush at the top, because it's actually in the channel. And when it gets loaded up, it's going to create a better seal, because that's a lot of pressure, and we don't want gas to leak out there. So I'm pushing it down in the back there. Again, I don't want to have to go down really far. I just got to get it below being flush. And now as I add the downward pressure, it's going to sit way down in there. That's good. So I don't see any O-ring anymore. I just see this metal flange. That's really good. I'm going to go ahead and add this piece back in. You see how it has a little lip going down? You want that down. You don't want that to be going up. You want it to be going down. That helps to push the metal flange down harder. So it's going to go in like that. And we're going to add that 8mm right there and singe it down. I'm sorry, that's not 8mm. That's a Torx 20. So put the Torx 20 in. And just prior to doing that, I'm just putting it in preliminarily, I'm going to tighten up that 8mm again in the back. That's going to create a lot of downward pressure just by itself. So I'm back to that 8mm in the back. Let me get that one nice and tight. That's holding down the rail in the back, but it's also pushing down on this crossover piece so that it has a better tight seal with the plastic fuel rail. What I'll do next is, before I finish everything, I'll go ahead and put the nice and tight. I'll go ahead and put the relay back in. The EGR, I'm putting that EGR cap. You guys see this in the back. Putting that back rubber piece back on the metal. I'm going to wiggle, push down. I'm going to tighten up this one so it goes really down in there tight. So I'm pushing down on this crossover metal rail with my thumb, keeping it low so I can add this pressure. It feels pretty tight. So we'll go ahead and give it a leak test now before we do the final assembly, and that's just so we can see if there's any point where the pressure's leaking out. Kind of get this back where it's supposed to go. Right there. Okay. Fuel pump relay back in. It's almost a little burned up there, huh? I wonder if that's time to get a new relay. These are the same part, so if you ever have a bad fuel pump relay, you can switch out with one of these other ones, because the fuel pump, if it goes out, you're stuck, but you can always use one of these, because it's, if you notice, it's the same part number. We're going to put that in, wiggle it all the way down, and we'll give it a leak test, see how it's doing. We got it started up, and we're just looking for if there's any gas leaking here. Looks good. And down where the injectors are. Usually you'll be able to smell it. I don't see anything, I don't smell anything, so looks like we got it. Okay, so we're just getting this clip back in, just to hold that wiring harness where it is. Just gonna pinch those together, and I'm gonna put this 10mm nut back on right here. We just took that off just to get it, make it easier to get to what we were doing. Not critical though. Tighten that up. All right, and we're going to put on this part, is where it catches that upper piece. Screws lined up. Those are also 10 millimeter. So just to save you time and money, I would again try the fuel injection. I know Seafoam makes a really good product, a fuel injection cleaner that you put in your gas tank, and that might do the trick to unstick your injector. But one way you know you have an injector that's sticking is it will start when it's cold, but once it's warmed up, it just cranks and cranks and cranks unless you hit the accelerator all the way. Then it starts, and that's a sign of a leaking injector, one that isn't atomizing the fuel. It's just like liquid fuel coming in. And yeah, a lot of times a fuel injector cleaner system will do that. It's easy to do this procedure. It's not a big deal, but they're really expensive. If you ever find any that are cheaper, like way cheaper, like you can get like 8 of them for 50 bucks, it could be that it is a forgery coming in from China, and they probably won't function very well. So I'm just tightening up that 8 millimeter. And this car is back from 2004, still running good. Just has kind of a rough idle was a problem, and then it showed that cylinder number 3 was misfiring due to an injector problem. All right, we'll go and close it up. Before I did the repair, I coated my hands with some of this liquid stuff and let it dry. So sometimes it helps you on the cleanup, because your hands have a little layer of soap on them already. I think where my hands touched the gasoline, though, it probably knocked off that soap. But the other part's cleaned up good, just the fingertips got a little gas on them. So then you have to do more scrubbing. But that's a good trick. Also wearing gloves works. I usually end up tearing the gloves, but you can just put a little bit of that liquid on and get it coating, especially on the cuticles, all around the fingertips. Let it dry after about 5 minutes, and then you can do the repair, and most of the grease and dirt will just come right off. Pretty good trick. Watching our video, and please subscribe to our channel when you get a chance, and also click the little bell notification button so we can send you weekly videos on all the different ways of fixing appliances around your home and saving you lots of money. So thanks again for watching, and please also press the like button for our video if this was helpful to you. Feel free to contact me at the email listed below, which is scottthefixitguy@yahoo.com, with any of your questions. And also, if you need to have a FaceTime meeting with me or a Zoom meeting, you can click on one of the links below in the description, and we can set up a 15-minute or 30-minute video conference where we can work on your appliance problem. So thanks again for all your support and for watching the video.